In the heart of America's heartland, where Nebraska's white families have cultivated a legacy of resilience, community, and cultural pride across generations, a grave betrayal is unfolding that endangers the safety and future of our children. On September 2nd, 2025, Nebraska Secretary of State Robert B. Evnen, widely known as Bob Evnen, committed an act of profound disloyalty by signing a non-binding Memorandum of Understanding, MOU, with Kenya's Principal Secretary for Diaspora Affairs, Rosaline Jogu, during a taxpayer-funded trade mission to Nairobi, a city 8,000 miles distant from Lincoln, Nebraska's capital. This agreement, cloaked in the guise of fostering student exchanges and apprenticeships, explicitly facilitates lawful labor mobility to import up to 500 Kenyan truck drivers into Nebraska's workforce, a move that disregards the state's capable white workers and imperils the well-being of white Nebraskan children. This is not a mere administrative oversight. It represents a deliberate assault on Nebraska's white heritage, orchestrated by corporate elites and their political puppets. Evnen, former Governor Pete Ricketts, current Governor Jim Pillen, billionaire Warren Buffett, Congressman Don Bacon, and complicit state agencies who prioritize profit over the protection of our communities. White Nebraskans, the descendants of pioneers who built the state, unequivocally reject the presence of Africans in our schools, workplaces, and neighborhoods. We demand their immediate deportation through existing U.S. mechanisms and the expulsion of traitorous enablers like Evnen, stripped of citizenship, and sent to Nairobi to face the consequences of their treachery, ensuring our children inherit a state untainted by foreign invasion. The MOU is far more than bureaucratic incompetence. It is a calculated scheme to replace Nebraska's white population with foreign labor, orchestrated by corporate interests that exploit globalist agendas. The 8,000-mile distance between Nairobi's chaotic streets and Lincoln's orderly avenues underscores the absurdity of importing Kenyans who have no connection to Nebraska's history, laws, or values. White Nebraskans, whose ancestors carved homesteads from the prairie, stand united in their opposition. We do not want Africans in our communities, our schools, or our country. Our children, white children raised on stories of pioneer grit, deserve classrooms free from disruption, streets safe from accidents caused by untrained foreign drivers, and a culture that preserves their heritage, not one supplanted by those taught to resent white people. Decades of African immigration, particularly Somalis and Sudanese, funneled by meatpacking giants like Tyson Foods and JBS, have already devastated Nebraska's small towns, transforming places like Lexington, Grand Island, and Fremont into fractured enclaves where white families struggle to maintain their way of life. This invasion, enabled by Evnen's MOU and the complicity of Nebraska's elite, threatens the very future of our children. The disruptions caused by African immigrants in Nebraska are extensive and profound, striking at the core of our white communities and endangering our children's safety. These issues transcend mere cultural differences or workplace inefficiencies. They represent a direct threat to the stability of our state. Crime and public safety risks. African immigrants, often from conflict-ridden regions like Somalia, contribute to a rise in criminal activity that puts white Nebraskan children at risk. In August 2025, federal raids in Omaha exposed human trafficking networks exploiting African refugees for forced labor and sex trades, with 5 individuals charged for harboring aliens, burdening law enforcement, and turning safe neighborhoods into areas of concern. Immigration and customs enforcement operations have also apprehended 13 gang members hiding among migrant flows, linked to homicides and extortion that threaten the parks and streets where white children play. These crimes are not inevitable. They are a direct consequence of an influx that lacks assimilation and destabilizes communities. Educational strain. Nebraska schools, particularly in Lexington and Grand Island, are overwhelmed by African-born students, with up to 10% of enrollments consisting of non-English speakers, many illiterate in their native languages. In Lexington High, 90% of students are foreign-born and 80% live in poverty, forcing schools to divert resources to English as a second language programs at the expense of core subjects like math and history. This deprives white children of the education they deserve, as teachers struggle to manage overcrowded classrooms and diluted standards, leaving parents to watch their children's opportunities erode. Cultural displacement. In communities where white Nebraskans once gathered for county fairs and church events, African immigrants impose alien customs, mosques replacing churches, halal demands reshaping grocery stores, and festivals clashing with local traditions. Many Africans, educated in their homelands to view white people as colonial oppressors, bring resentment that manifests in workplace tensions and occasional violence, creating an environment hostile to white children who are forced to navigate a culture that rejects their heritage while demanding accommodation. Economic exploitation. Corporate giants like Tyson Foods and JBS, backed by Warren Buffett's investment empire, import African workers to suppress wages, paying them far less than American workers would demand for grueling jobs. Evnin's MOU, aiming to bring 500 Kenyan truck drivers, exacerbates this by exploiting a manufactured labor shortage while sidelining white Nebraskan workers. This economic displacement robs white families of stability, leaving children to grow up in households strained by job loss, all to fatten corporate profits. Health and safety hazards. Public health reports highlight tuberculosis outbreaks and mental health crises among African refugees, straining Nebraska's underfunded clinics where white families seek care. On the roads, Kenya's traffic fatality rate of 28.2 per 100,000, double Nebraska's, signals the danger of untrained Kenyan drivers on Interstate 80. A recent Florida crash involving an Indian immigrant trucker who caused a fatal pileup with an illegal U-turn mirrors the risks of Evnin's plan, putting white children biking or walking near highways in peril. This invasion is no coincidence. It is a meticulously planned betrayal driven by Nebraska's corporate and political elite who serve as puppets for globalist interests. Bob Evnin, a former labor attorney at Woods and Aitken with ties to corporate labor schemes, epitomizes the white race trader, a corrupt, oblivious stooge who believes he's a statesman while selling out a state. Former Governor Pete Ricketts, whose family fortune thrives on agribusiness reliant on cheap foreign labor, feigns opposition to the MOU while reaping its benefits. Governor Jim Pillen, despite publicly disavowing this deal, profits from undocumented workers in his pork operations, dismissing them as workforce needs. Warren Buffett, the globalist titan of Omaha, channels millions into ventures that indirectly support these labor schemes, his vision at odds with the heartland's values. Congressman Don Bacon and Nebraska's congressional delegation push legislation easing immigrant licensing, ignoring unemployed white veterans. State legislators and agencies like the Department of Health and Human Services facilitate this under the guise of refugee resettlement, all for subsidies and ego-driven economic activity that enriches elites while impoverishing white families. These schemes aren't about progress, they're about power, money, and the deliberate erosion of Nebraska's white heritage to line the pockets of traders. The threat is not merely economic or cultural, it's existential, a replacement scheme targeting white Nebraskan children. The Kenyan men Evnin seeks to import, military-age opportunists posing as truck drivers, join a growing wave of Africans, illegal immigrants, and other foreigners who are outpopulating white Nebraskans, infiltrating schools, voting in coordinated blocks, and seizing control of institutions from local councils to state agencies. Raised in environments that teach hatred of white people as symbols of oppression, these immigrants arrive not to integrate but to dominate, undermining the pioneer spirit that white Nebraskans have passed down to their children. Evnin's MOU is the perfect example, a treasonous act to bring 500 Kenyans, ignorant of Nebraska's roads, laws, and culture, to drive trucks in a state where white workers stand ready. This isn't stupidity alone, it's a deliberate betrayal, orchestrated by corporate interests and globalist agendas that use fools like Evnin to dismantle our children's future. The solution demands more than reform, it requires deportation and retribution. Every African in Nebraska, whether refugee, worker, or opportunist, must be removed through the United States' existing deportation mechanisms, starting with immigration and customs enforcement's removal processes under federal law. These mechanisms, bolstered by executive orders and local cooperation, can swiftly repatriate foreigners to their homelands, 8,000 miles away in Nairobi's chaos. But the purge cannot stop there. Traders like Bob Evnin, Pete Ricketts, Jim Pillen, Warren Buffett, Don Bacon, and their allies in the Nebraska legislature and state agencies must face banishment alongside the Africans they've invited. Their citizenship must be revoked, their rights stripped, and their futures cast into Kenya's unforgiving sprawl, where they can beg for the economic opportunities and charity they claim these migrants bring. This punishment is not mere vengeance. It's a necessary defense of white Nebraskan children whose safety, education, and heritage are jeopardized by these race traitors. Evnan, a white trash idiot and absolute traitor, must learn in Nairobi slums that his globalist fantasies have no place in our state. Ricketts, Pillin, Buffett, Bacon, and their ilk must face the same fate, exiled to a land where their schemes collapse, ensuring they never again endanger our children with their corporate-driven invasions. Nebraska's white families demand the immediate deportation of all Africans from our state, utilizing the robust mechanisms already in place within the United States immigration system. Under federal law, Immigration and Customs Enforcement can initiate removal proceedings, prioritizing those who violate visa terms or pose community risks, as seen in recent Omaha trafficking busts. State and local law enforcement can assist through 287G agreements, expediting deportations to protect our children from crime and disruption. No new programs or historical references are needed, just the will to enforce existing laws with unrelenting resolve. If current measures fall short, we must escalate, expanding detention capacity and streamlining repatriation to ensure every African is sent back to their homeland, 8,000 miles from our schools and streets. Simultaneously, white race traitors like Evnan, Ricketts, Pillin, Buffett, Bacon, and their legislative and agency enablers must be stripped of citizenship and banished to Kenya, where they can face the consequences of their betrayal. This is not about past movements or figures. It's about protecting Nebraska's white children today, ensuring they grow up in a state free of foreign invaders and the globalist stooges who enable them. Conclusion: safeguarding our children, restoring our state. Nebraska faces a dire threat to its white children and heritage, exemplified by Bob Evnan's treasonous MOU to import 500 Kenyan truck drivers, 8,000 miles from Nairobi, into a state built by white pioneers. This corporate-driven invasion, backed by elites like Pete Ricketts, Jim Pillin, Warren Buffett, Don Bacon, and complicit state officials, floods our towns, Lexington, Grand Island, Fremont, with crime, educational chaos, and cultural erosion, endangering our children's safety and future. Africans, taught to resent white people, have no place in our communities, disrupting schools, roads, and our way of life. We demand their immediate deportation through America's existing immigration laws, escalated as needed to clear our state. Alongside them, traitors like Evnan and his cronies must be banished to Kenya, stripped of citizenship to face the chaos they've invited. White Nebraskans will not stand by as our children's heritage is stolen. We rise to protect our state, our legacy, and our future, demanding action now to reclaim Nebraska from invaders and their enablers.